Okay, I gotta ask you this question. Where did the book finally come into play? Because you've been talking about it for some time, a couple years, I guess. So when did you finally say, I'm going to sit down and actually make this happen?
Well, the Lord, when he released me from the Los Angeles mission, it was basically to use my voice differently than just from behind the pulpit.
Hmm.
And I didn't know what that meant at the time. I didn't see it as a book or anything like that. But one of the sisters in my church came to me about a year before that, and she works in British media. She's pretty well known and up there. And she said, "The Lord told me to help you with your book."
Oh,
And so at that time, and that was before I left the mission, about a year and a half before I left the mission, we started interviewing together, going over my story, just really cataloging all of my story, her interviewing members of my family, people who were close to me, recordings, that kind of thing, just journaling, all of that work, and going through all of my notes that I have been taking. I journal a lot, and just putting that in, a depository. And then the Lord said, I wanted you to, and He released me from the mission. And then I had all the stuff sitting here. And then I was, just with the Lord. And He says, my wife brought me a shirt. My mom used to always say before she passed away in 2020, "Right on." And she would just say, "Right on." And my wife made me a t-shirt and she handed it to me in a box that said, "Right on." And it was WRITEON,
hmm.
not RIGHTON, like right on, but she said, "Right on," as if my mom was telling me to start writing.
Oh,
And it was just like my wife told me, "It's time." And so I just started putting it together, and 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 God, he's the master weaver,
wow.
and
Really?
he really
Hmm.
gave us a divine impression of how he wanted the book to be delivered, um, through a particular format. And he gave me the format, he gave me the style, he gave me everything he wanted. And we whittled it down to these chapters. There's other chapters that we left on the table that we didn't put in this particular version that may come out later. That's a part of a different story or a different component. There's other books that are in the hopper now. But he is an amazing weaver, and
Hmm.
he put this together. And so over a year or so of just dedicating to write and working with a team, he assembled the team, together with my wife and myself and others that he brought to us to help us put this project together and help us to teach us, really about, writing and publication. And because I didn't know anything about the industry, and God brought everybody I needed to teach me.
Wow. So the book title, by the way, I want to get this right, is From Skid Row to CEO. I should start off with that. And so I got you this question. When you were going through your storyline, what did the book do inside of you?
It opened up, um, places inside of me that I thought that I had already dealt with. For example, I started having dreams of my father. Um, I started having tremors. I started having,
Oh,
um, waking up in sweats about my trauma, when I was homeless and coming out of the Marine Corps. So much that I called back the Marines to figure out what really would happen. Because I just thought, okay, this is what happened. I had put this in my head of what I went through. But now that I am pretty connected and I could call the right people, I was able to investigate my file and discovered that, I was released untreated.
wow. Now, do you feel like that's really deep right there? Do you feel like There's sometimes a lot of people do this that they speed through to something and they end up hitting the wall, unfortunately. And then once they hit the wall, they have to stop and go, whoa, here's how I got to the wall, if that makes sense.
No, that's exactly how it felt. Like for me,
Oh,
it felt like a lot of unanswered questions about why I ended up
mm,
addicted to a substance. And I didn't know at the time that I was self-medicating, like, which is because, we have to understand, like, in our community and Black and African American community, over 20% of Black and African American adults, that's 7 million people. When you talk about 7 million people experience mental illness annually. And it can be driven by traumas, systemic inequity, racism, and guess what? Despite similar higher rates compared to our counter white counterparts, we're 36% less likely to receive treatment
yeah.
because we don't discuss mental health in our communities the way we should. So fast go backwards 30 something years ago, like for me. And so I didn't know what I was dealing with and didn't have a way to express it because what the depression and everything that I was suffering from,
Mm,
I couldn't manage it, right? And I didn't know how to manage the depression that I was feeling and the effects of it and the cultural response to it. And so I began to self medicate, and that took me on a 7-year spiral of being unhoused.
yeah. When I read that and watched that, I said to myself, wow, that's almost a decade, man. Which leads me to my next question. What do you say to people who have family members, and we all do, especially if you're in our community and culture? What do you say to people like me who's walking through with a family member who is dealing with, coming out of prison, dealing with mental health issues? What encouragement do you give?
I think that what we need to understand that we're talking about disease, right?
Yeah.
Not just a disease, but a disease that we oftentimes disassociate ourselves with, that it creates disharmony. So it creates dis-ease, right? It makes us uncomfortable to have discussion. And I want to free people up today and allow people to understand that we can have discussions openly and freely in our own communities and create a response to it that helps us heal ourselves, right? Like, because if society as a whole, if we're estranged from society and solutions that are a part of that, we can embrace solutions within our own community to
Mm,
bring healing to ourselves. And I think it starts with accepting that these are a part of reality. And there's some certain traumas of people returning home from incarceration that they experience. And for us to understand what that is and not create triggers,
mm,
and really understand what those triggers are, and to help people really create the roadmap back,
mm,
and my faith allows me to do that, right? I think that's a part of the mandate that we have from Christ, right? I think that for me, as a man of God, and understanding that I have a responsibility, like a biblical Christian responsibility, to care for those that are less fortunate in my community. And it's actually a mandate, a
mm.
scriptural mandate for me to do it. And then so I take that and I move in the direction as if Christ himself was making an appeal to me,
Mhm.
um, to care for the population.
Wow. What do you want the reader to get out of the book?
I want them to, one, see themselves in the book, whatever their skid row is, right? It doesn't have to be a geographical skid row, But whatever it is where their life has hit a skid, right? And they need to find a solution to come out of that space. I want to be able to, I want them to see that. I want them to see that we are all divinely connected by
Mm,
a thread and that God is weaving us together to create pathways and tributaries that solve areas in our lives if we allow ourselves to self-discover who we really are in Him and restore the divinity back in us,
wow.
and to really be honest about what they see and to go through it, right? Like that's why it's a read, but it's and the way God gave it to me, it's also a working read. It requires you to put work in, right? And so it doesn't make it a hard read, but it makes it a involved read. You can't just passively read the book and put it down. You have to go through it and understand that it will bring you into it and by design to help you see yourself, see how you are part of the solution, but also how you can self-discover and see yourself in the pages. And you don't have to be a person of addiction to see yourself.
Mm. So you're saying, well, I love your point is be honest with where you are. And we all have a skid row somewhere. Or we've all been through a skid row somewhere. May not have been actually on skid row, but we've all been there or near there. Um,
That's right.
so how does one come off of the skid row, man? Like what is the one or two things that they need?
One, they first have to admit that they're there.
Yeah.
They have to see that this is the reality. And then oftentimes, and this is a lesson that we learn in DMV, of all places, we learn it for the Department of Motor Vehicles, that when you hit a skid driving your vehicle, what does it tell you to do?
Don't jerk.
What does it tell you to do? It tells you to drive, turn into the skid.
Yeah, and we tend to try to stop or skid away, but you really
We
turn
want to
into it.
turn, we want to embrace, we want to bristle, we want to turn out, we want to do everything but turn into the skid. And when I saw the revelation in that about how our lives hit skids, and that oftentimes the solution is within, not without.
Mm,
And we have to learn how to embrace where we are, turn into it so that God can help us see the solution and help us discover what those solutions are. And whether that's, an actual skid row, there's solutions there. But if your life is hit at a skid, then turn into it, face it, seek the resources that you need. And oftentimes, if you're a believer, especially, remember we have everything that we need pertaining into life and godliness inside of us. And
mm,
so we have to turn inwardly to discover what that is to help us solve the areas that our life has hit that we call a skid.
mm. What did being a CEO teach you?
It, a CEO taught me that I really need to learn the heart of servanthood
Mm,
to be the type of CEO that would be modeled after my Savior. And I think it's a book called Jesus CEO that helped me to see it a little bit more clearly. But just studying the life of Jesus himself and how he sat with his core leadership to help them to understand the mission and the vision that was before them and the task, and to empower them to carry that out. I think that's ultimately the role, a part of the role, major part of the role is to spend the majority of your time with the individuals that will help you to carry out the mission and the vision of the organization and that God has given to you to serve. And when you see yourself as the servant leader, and then instead of the one that needs to be served, right? We have too many CEOs that want to be served, that want to get the big paycheck, they want to get all these different things in our communities and in our society that creates this imbalance. And CEOs today, whether you're in corporate America, whether you're in nonprofit, it really doesn't matter. But people who are leading in our society for some reason we have created this dynamic where we have, and even in the church institution, we've created this dynamic where we are not hearing the mandate of Christ and we're choosing to be served rather than serve.
Hmm. I mean, I got this next to last question. In that 7 year window, how did you know that you were getting to being on the right road? Like 7 years is a long time. And so, I mean, and I say that in the sense of sometimes people think, I've been here too long, there's just no way. And what I love about your story is you say, there is a way, no matter how long you've been here. Like, there is like, you can redeem the time. Um, so, what do you say to people who go, I've been here so long, I just can't do it, man. Uh,
Right? And I would say to them, you can't.
mm,
You can't do it on your own. We all need help. That's why the book is there to help you
yeah.
understand that we need each other. We need the Lord. We need something greater than who we are to help give us power because we need it, like wherever you're at. And so I think the reliance on each other is necessary in terms of humanity, right? I think that's why two are better than one.
Correct.
And we hear that all the time in the scripture. That's why Jesus sent the disciples out by two. There's something to be said about the motto, right? It's something to be said about the need for humanity to be paired with each other, to rely on each other, to accomplish tasks. What we've allowed ourselves to do is allow separation and division to create the chasms that we don't come together to solve issues. Because
Mm,
we don't hear what Christ said in Genesis when he says, if they agree, they can accomplish anything. So
mm.
whenever you see a broken system, whether it's homelessness, whether it's mental health, or whatever, you have to ask yourself the question, do we have agreement or is there disagreement?
Wow. Wow. It's a good word. Agreement or disagree. But I gotta ask you this question. When you look back, it's the last one here. When you look back and you've had such a life, man, is this what you thought it would be?
Not at all.
Huh.
I thought I was going to be a cartoonist. I was a young man who had aspirations of being a cartoonist. I still love to sketch and draw now today. It's a part of who I am. But I thought I wanted to be a cartoonist. I didn't want to, be an orator, preach the word of God,
There's
be
still
this.
time, Pastor Troy, is all I'm gonna say. There's still time, man. You're not dead
Well,
yet.
well, I will be delivering one of my next work will be in the illustration form. It's more to be revealed on that. And it's something that is an homage to my father and my full circle and arc of full healing with him. Anyway, it's going to be a blessing. I'm going to be releasing a children's book called Randy the Red Ant's Road to Redemption, and it's based on my life story, but it's in children's format and
Wow.
illustrations and characters are being developed now on the story I've written.
So there's still time. So you're telling me the cartoonist is still there, is what you're telling me.
It's still there. The artist is still there. I'm working with people, but that are better artists than I am. But I have the vision in my head what I want them to do. Put
I
that
think
like
kids,
that.
I think kids need it, by the way. Well, hey man, this has been good. Thank you so much for your time. Hopefully I get to spend some more time with you again later. Because the
I
story's
love it.
amazing, man. And I think we need more of it in today's world. I really do, man, because like you just said, man, 7 million people just in our community are dealing
Yeah,
with it. Yeah,
and we just talk about mental health, homelessness. The numbers are staggering, right? And so I just think that when we understand it and we see that there is opportunities for healing, we should embrace it.
yeah, and I think we need more of it. And my prayer is that God keeps you just because the work is hard, man. I mean, it is hard work, and I'm thankful that you're on the front line doing it. So